Let me start with a question. Why do so many managers spend endless hours talking about culture and accountability and employees doing what they're supposed to do and standards and poor performance and improving performance, yet end up leading teams that are stuck in mediocrity? And it's because of one brutal truth, and I'm sorry to have to break this to you, but I'm a straight shooter. You don't get what you preach. You get what you tolerate. Every time you let something slide, a missed deadline, sloppy work, passive-aggressive behavior, you're broadcasting the real rules of the game, and you don't realize it. And the team, they're watching. Like I say many, many times, they watch and hear and listen, and they're taking in everything you're saying and doing and translate it into their perception. They're taking notes. And they're deciding whether to play up or play down based on the standards you set, or inadvertently, mistakenly fail to set. You can't legislate this. You have to enforce this. You have to walk it. You have to talk it. You have to course correct it. You cannot let even the little stuff slide. And today we're going deep into this, because if you don't learn how to set and enforce standards as a leader, you're not just risking performance, you're risking your culture, and your culture is everything to your success. And even if you have a small team, let's say you're a supervisor or a department lead, your team has a culture. If you're a manager, it leads a bigger team, maybe 20 or 30 people with some supervisors or directors under you. You set standards. They're watching you. If you're the CEO, owner of a business, they're watching you. You're setting the standards. And this episode is based on one of the chapters in my book, The Roadmap to Difficult Conversations. And I'll tell you right now, you can download a free copy. The link's in the show notes. Don't miss it. And hey, before we dig in, I got to get this in. Do me a favor. If you're getting value from this podcast, and I really appreciate all my subscribers, hit that like button. If you're new to the show, subscribe to it and share it with your team or fellow leader, someone you think may be able to benefit from this discussion today. And don't forget to check out RDL Training, that's Romeo Delta Lima Training, for more resources to take you from manager to true leader. All right, let's tune it up. Let's get the engine rolling and talk about this. Culture is built on standards. Let's land this where it matters the most. Culture. This isn't about having to have a conversation, how to have a conversation. This is more about how to avoid these conversations. It's fire prevention. Because here's the deal. You don't build culture through slogans, the wall mission statements, the motivational art, or your handbook. Like I said earlier, you can't legislate this. You can't write it and expect it to be followed. If that was the case, our jobs would be so much easier. No. You build culture through what you consistently enforce, expect and enforce. You don't get what you preach, you get what you tolerate. So let's talk about setting standards. Think about it. Every time you overlook a bad behavior, every time you avoid a tough conversation, you're silently setting a new bar. And guess who notices? Not just the person who you let slip. Everyone. Everyone notices. You may not realize it. Very few people come running over to you and say, oh, they're getting away with something. This isn't fair. No, they'll internalize that and they'll process it. And when one person gets away with half the effort and they get the same rewards, very often they're making more than the person that is being offended by this. Why are they getting away with it? Why don't I? Why not just operate like them? It's resentment. That crushes morale. Performance erodes when you have low morale, a poor culture, and pretty soon your A player starts asking themselves, why should I keep pushing when mediocrity is getting a free pass? That's not what you think. That's not how you intentionally approach your job. That's not what you're trying to do when you're managing your team. We're avoiding conflict. That's the easy way out. We overlook way too many things because that's the easy way. I don't have time to deal with this. We're going to talk more about that. Oh, God. Since the 15th time they've done that. Well, how did they ever get to the second time? Because that's how decline starts. Not with one big mistake, but with little tolerances that pile up until your culture is poisoned. Let me say that again. It's your tolerances, even with little things, that have a compounding effect. They pile up until your culture is harmed, if not poisoned. Almost every human has in them a need for fairness and consistency. And here's where most managers fall flat. I'd say easily 80% plus come up some level short of this. They confuse fairness with sameness. What? Fairness doesn't mean you treat everyone exactly the same. It means you hold everyone to the same expectations, including yourself. I'm going to say it again. Fairness doesn't mean you treat everyone exactly the same. They need different inputs from you. You remember your DISC profile. They need to be rewarded and recognized and encouraged and motivated through how they like to do it. So you have to adapt yourself to their needs. But the easiest way to do that is you hold everyone to the same set of expectations, especially yourself. So let's talk about some of the standards that I hear about often. Punctuality. If you expect punctuality, well, guess who better show up on time? You. If you want accountability, like I say very, very often, own your mistakes. Admit it, fix it, move on. If you want them to own their mistakes, you have to own your mistakes. If you ask for feedback, be prepared to receive it without your ego. Accept it. You're asking them to take feedback from you. You should be willing to take feedback from them because you're not perfect. And if you build that kind of relationship with your team, oh my God, how powerful you become. That's leadership integrity. However, the moment you fail to walk the standard yourself, remember, they're taking notes. You're silently rewritten it for the entire team. You just made it okay for everybody. And trust me, they're watching and they follow your actions. And what you do is set their standard. What you do set standards way faster than your words. And if you're only using words to establish standards, there's a lot more to it. And here's where I think many people come up or struggle. Let me just say they struggle. It's the power of enforcing the little things. Let me give you some real world examples, some proof of how powerful standards, even little standards, how those standards can be when they're consistently enforced. There's no variation. It's consistently enforced. Think about some of the most recognizable companies out there. Very often, they're not just known for their products. They're known for their standards. Marriott is a great example of that. I'm not bragging. It's kind of unfortunate. I've spent 1,800 nights in Marriotts in my life. Well, how do I know? Because I'm a lifetime titanium and it says on my account. And why have I spent so many nights in Marriott? Not because the price was any less. They're competitive with anybody else. It's because I knew exactly what I was going to get every time I walked into a Marriott, especially a courtyard. Marriott's a really big one. But those are big standards, right? That's how the room looks. It's how it smells. It's how it's cleaned. It's how it's designed. It's all about their brand and standards. But let's talk about some of the little stuff that I'm betting you've noticed, you recognize, you understand, you've seen, you've experienced. One of my favorite places on the planet, Chick-fil-A. I know exactly whether I'm in Long Beach, California, or Long Island, New York. If I go into a Chick-fil-A, I'm going to get exactly the same thing. And I'm also going to get, when I say thank you, it's my pleasure. Every time you thank an employee, they reply with the same phrase. Never a break in that. And believe me, I spend a lot of time at Chick-fil-A's. It's not optional for them. It's enforced. And it reinforces the brand of service and respect. Here's another example. I wish I was able to stay in a lot of these, but I've had the fortune to spend a couple nights in Ritz-Carltons. They know every guest's name. Employees are trained to address guests by their name at least 2 times during their stay. Such a small detail, but man, when I'm spending the dough on spending the night at Ritz-Carlton, that sort of thing feeding my ego, how special I am, that they're going to call me by my name, it creates that standard of personalized luxury. Disney, pretty big brand. Their on-stage standards at Disney. You've noticed this. You've all been to Disney. Who hasn't? No cast member can point with one finger. Did you know that? They always used to. Or an open hand. Because even a gesture carries weight in their culture. And also, because it's a worldwide organization, it carries weight in other cultures as well, countries' cultures. I walked into a shared office space yesterday to meet some folks. And I always appreciate this. I know exactly what's happening. This place was spotless. It looked beautiful. I asked the receptionist, hey, where's the restroom? She doesn't just say, take a left and another left and it's on your right. She got up and said, let me show you. And she walked me down, stuck her hand out, said, right in there, sir. Actually, she called me Mr. Sigmund because I'd given her my name. UPS. You may not have noticed this one. But you know they have a no left turn rule. Drivers are trained to avoid left turns whenever possible. Think about that. It saves time. It saves fuel, because I can turn right on red. And accidents. Most intersection accidents are created by somebody taking a left. Because even little stuff like that adds up to big dollars for UPS. It's enforced daily. In fact, it's part of why UPS is legendary for its efficiency. It's faster to turn rights than turn lefts. I avoid accidents. I keep my costs down. And they have those beautiful brown uniforms. You'll never see an employee without one of those on. And of course, Apple stores. And I'm also betting that most of you have been into an Apple store because it's an experience. And do you know they have a 5 steps of service, not a selling, of service? Apple employees are trained from day one to follow a 5-step process in every interaction. Approach, probe, ask questions, present based on that probe, listen to the customer, and end. Just make the sale. Make the repair. Wish them the end, however it is. Come back when you're ready. And it's the same in every store, everywhere. And they don't have 10,000 stores, but they have almost every major city, they have a couple. And so those are standards, little standards, but recognizable standards. And don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you to start creating new standards. You already have standards. Enforce them. Train them and enforce them. Because here's the lesson. When companies enforce the little things, they build a culture where the big things, the big standards stick. If you can't enforce the little stuff, the simple phrase like, it's my pleasure, what are the freaking odds you'll enforce accountability or major issues like missed deadlines, bad attitudes, or sloppy performance? That's why enforcing small standards is so critical. You want to get the big stuff right, you've got to get the little stuff right. And create that discipline. They know what's expected of them. Super important. It's clear. Everybody does it. And when everybody's doing the little stuff, back in my days at CarMax, we literally would not let an associate on the clock to be anywhere in our building without a name badge on. If somebody came to work and they had forgotten their name badge, we either made them a new one. We had a machine in most stores that would make them a new one, or we sent them home. They could not come to work without their name badge. And guess what? They're not the perfect company, but they're successful as hell, and they get the little things right. It's the discipline. It's the clarity. It's the momentum that comes from repetition, fairness, because now everybody's being enforced exactly the same way. And this all kind of comes back to, maybe you've heard of that. A lot of people haven't, the broken windows theory. This connects directly to the broken windows theory. The theory says if you leave one broken window unrepaired, it signals neglect. And that neglect spreads. Because we have a mess, we have glass, we have something that is in decline, people will more likely add to that decline, and then add, and soon the whole neighborhood starts to decline. I'm an old man. I know. Nobody has to remind me of that. And I have standards, and I live in a beautiful place, and we have this beautiful shopping center that's right next to us, and bars and restaurants and marina, and there's strangers down here because I live in a tourist town, Huntington Beach, California. People come from, miles and miles away locally to just come because the beach is cooler than generally the desert around us. And they come here and they go to the breweries and the bars and the restaurants, and they go out on the boats, and we have trash cans, but somehow those trash cans fill up and then they start spilling out. And I can tell you, now I'm going to admit it, on Saturday mornings and Sunday mornings, I expect when I'm walking my dogs at 5:30 in the morning, sometimes I sleep into 6, I'm going to be picking up that trash. Why? Because if I don't, they don't have anybody there to do it. I'm taking care of my own neighborhood. I don't know of anybody else in my neighborhood that does this. I'm not trying to look for a reward, but I have standards. And as I sit on my balcony, I don't want to be looking at a bunch of trash sitting around. And I do know for sure, because in my 68 years, I've seen it a million times. When you have a mess, people will contribute to that mess. It'll get worse and worse and worse. So I pick it up to minimize it. Yes, there's another mess the next day, but I pick that up too. I pick that up too because I don't want to look at it. I don't want it to carry on. I never know when they're going to come by and pick up the trash. So I anticipate that. I take the action to do that. Why? Because that's my standard. I'm not going to look at trash in my neighborhood. And you know what we don't have? Is a lot of trash. Funny. So your leadership works exactly the same way. If you let small standards slide, a late arrival here, an eye roll there. You're leaving broken windows in your culture. And just like in the theory, small cracks multiply until your whole culture begins to break and deteriorate. But when you enforce even the smallest standards consistently, fairly, professionally, using the difficult conversations methodology, you send a message is, I care, we care, this matters, everything matters. Excellence is the norm here. Excellence. Do many businesses reach excellence? No, not a lot. But it can be what we aspire to. But we'll never even come close. We'll be good or maybe pretty good if we're not enforcing the standards or even the small standards. But you want excellence. Raise those standards and enforce them. And by the way, that's how you, like I said before, it bears repeating, that's how you minimize the number of difficult conversations you'll face as a leader. Because when people know the standard and see it consistently enforced, they regulate themselves, picking up the trash. You don't have to play cleanup crew nearly as often. I don't mind. Anyway. And I love psychology. And the psychology behind accountability is people crave clarity and fairness. You hear it all the time. Well, I know I did it, but you did it too. Or why are you blaming them? They do it as well. And studies in organizational psychology prove this. Perceived fairness is one of the strongest predictors of engagement, retention, and trust. Fairness. Set standards, enforce standards across the board. However, when standards are murky, or you don't feel like enforcing it today, or I'm tired, I don't want to deal with this, meaning you unevenly enforce your standards, the brain of those who are always watching you and taking notes reads that as a threat. It triggers frustration, comparison, and eventually withdrawal. If somebody keeps getting away with poor performance, poor attitude, whatever, disruptions, they keep getting away with that. It's the psychology of the human is we will naturally lower our standards because somebody else is getting away with it. We're in an environment that constantly accepts mediocrity or less. You will get mediocrity or less from everybody. And you're really torquing off your good people. You can't hire good people into that kind of environment. They will not thrive in that kind of environment because it's not how they like to live their lives. So if you want to hire good people, enforce your standards because that attracts good people. And, the cost of all this is inconsistency. The need for predictability and growth and, scaling, etc., success. It's all from standards. And I've got to get this little bit in here too, because this may be a little confusing, but I need to say it. And email me, vaughn@rdltraining.com if you want to talk about this, no cost. Because here's where leaders need to sharpen their instincts, because here's some EQ in all this. Some empathy. Let's call it empathy. Don't let a pattern become a problem. I had a text conversation with a client of mine, the owner of a company this morning. He was torqued off because somebody forgot 2 or 3 things. And my first question is, how often have they done that? It's the first time. I said, don't say a word. Because they got a pattern of being a really good, 5, 6, 7 years, I think, of being a really good employee. And there's this fine line between patience and passivity. So the rule of thumb, if you will, is if it's somebody who's a solid employee, and they have a slip, it's not a pattern, practice the art of overlooking. That's when you can overlook it. If it's not a pattern with an existing, well-rounded, contributing employee. Don't nitpick your best players, because that's where fairness will bite you in the butt. Because you nitpick the good guy, the good person in all this, and they know you've let somebody get away with it that doesn't operate as well as them. In fact, they may even get away with it a lot more. Oh, believe me, that is going to come out. They may not say it, but their performance is going to show it. Every time, this is my first question, every time I'm coaching an executive, coaching a manager, and they say, wow, Sally she was so good just 6 months ago, and now she does nothing right. She's moody, she's irritable, she kind of just shows up and mails it in. And my first question is always, well, what happened 6 months ago that changed that? What happened either in her personal life or there at work that changed her performance? Sally just didn't wake up in a bad mood and stay there. Sally was put into some situation that created her being disengaged. I can't really control what goes on at home. That's not a standard I can enforce, but I have to address it at work, especially if it's affecting me. Their performance is your performance. Talked about that in the last one. So always understand there's some catalyst, there's some event that takes a good employee and makes them bad. And even if you take the time to sit down with them and say, hey, Sally, I see a big difference in how you're coming to work. You used to do this, now you're doing this. I'd love to be able to help you. What's happened? And you show that empathy, that care for that person. Very often, if you've done a good job in leadership and have a solid professional relationship, they'll tell you. They're looking for help. But that's for your good players, your best players, or your one-time really good players that may have fallen off. Find out why. There's always an event. And the sooner you get to whatever that event was and talk it through, the sooner you're going to get your old Sally back. But on the other hand, that's for the good guys. That's the good players. On the other hand, if it's a new hire or someone with a little bit of a shaky record, and we've all had some of those, you must address it immediately. Because if you don't correct it, remember, they're taking notes. You're coaching them to believe it's okay. It's just this weird psychology. You see it in theft and crimes. If they can get away with it one time, they'll do it a second time, and a third and a fourth. And once they start getting away with it, the frequency of doing it, shoplifting or stealing or speeding or drunk driving, whatever it is, more often they get away with it, the more often they're going to do it. It's human nature. It's okay. I'm going to get away with it. So, standards. Now, the examples around this. Now, I'm talking about the shaky player or the new player now, not the good player. But this person is dangerous, and I call them the silent underminer. Silent underminer. You've got an employee, and for example, you've likely seen this, who rolls their eyes at meetings. Maybe when somebody else, one particular person in the meeting speaks or says something, they roll their eyes. Or they roll their eyes after you bring up a standard or a missed deadline. They roll their eyes. You've got to say something about that. They don't say things out loud. but their body language is screaming disrespect. Either, well, they're disrespecting you for sure, but they're also disrespecting somebody else if that is the reason they're rolling their eyes. You can't let that go. You don't want to address them publicly, but as soon as you can get them into a private setting, you've got to talk about it. Because if you don't, you just told the entire team that's acceptable here. So a better approach is you pull that person aside, private, and you address it not in a authoritarian manner, in a compassionate manner. Hey, just a second, I want to talk to you about something. I wanted to check in about how things are landing in our meetings. I noticed today some reactions that kind of felt off. I saw you roll your eyes. Remember doing that? You may even not know that you're doing it. Do you remember that? Can we talk about how you're feeling? See, you're talking about feelings. You're not attacking. You're exploring. You're asking permission to talk about it. But the fact that you brought it up, that you noticed it and brought it up, it's not a hammer pounding. It's hey, I noticed something's a little off. What's going on? You're resetting the tone. They know that you know. Another example. This one is also pretty common too. The missed deadline veteran. They never get anything done on time. And let's say it's a sales rep, top rep, and they miss a deadline, but they normally crush it. Well, there are some leaders out there, and I'd love to be able to catch them in the act of doing the wrong thing because, man, does it make a difference in the morale of their team, especially their top vets, if they do this. Old school leaders that command the controllers, they'd call that person out on the spot. You missed your deadline. You missed your sales goal. You can't let that happen. Well, if they've set records every month, they've hit their goal 50 out of 52 times. You don't want to nitpick them. You want to support them. Hey, I know you're disappointed. You've been rock solid. So you missing your goal, missing the deadline, that kind of caught me off guard. But what happened? Lower your register, explore, don't accuse. You've been rock solid. And it's really caught me by surprise that it didn't happen. What happened? Maybe it was a glitch. Maybe there's something deeper going on. Maybe they've got a newborn at home that's keeping them awake all night. I don't know. Maybe somebody else is really bugging them. Maybe they've seen something at work that's bothering them. There's some distraction there. Either way, you're opening the door instead of slamming it shut. You've noticed it, but you're not coming in guns blazing. That's balancing your standards with respect. If you want respect, you have to grant respect. And as I've said throughout, I love Jefferson Fisher. If you haven't read him, you need to read him. If you haven't watched his YouTube channel, you need to watch his YouTube channel or some of the amazing podcasts that he's on. He's an amazing guy. I love him. And I'm sharing his framework. I shared it in the book. I'm sharing it with you again today in case this is not a regular occurrence of listening to the Business Mechanic Show. It's a 3-step process. Tell them what you want to talk about. For example, hey, I want to talk about team standards around responsiveness. Then tell them how you want it to end. So I want to talk about our team standards around responsiveness. My hope is that we will leave aligned on the same page moving forward. That's how you want it to end. We will leave on the same page moving forward. Or some variation of that. And then the third step, ask for buy-in. Is it okay to talk about that now? Is now a good time to have that conversation? Ask permission. Tell them what you want to talk about. Tell them how you want it to end. Here's our goal in this conversation. And then ask for them to buy it. Now a good time to talk about it. That is such a simple framework, but think about how that changes conversations, even at home with a spouse or a child, a coworker, a peer. It just changes things, and it makes the conversation very beneficial. It's such a simple structure, but the art to all this is it lowers defenses, and it keeps you calm. If you can't do it calmly, do not have the conversation. Walk around the block, wait till the end of the day. But you have to remain calm, no matter how they respond, because that sets the tone for a conversation, not a confrontation, a conversation. And remember, please keep this in mind. This is your standard for yourself. Silence is approval. There's the final word, and I can't stress it enough. If you let someone consistently fall short without speaking up, you're not just tolerating it, you're approving it. And you don't mean to do that. You don't realize you're doing it, but that's what you're doing. Silence is agreement. Delay is permission. And the longer you wait, by the way, the harder it is to correct. The harder it is to correct, the deeper the damage to your culture. So the longer you let it go on, and now you've reached the end of your rope, and I got to have that conversation, you're forced into it, a lot of damage has already been done. If you keep tolerating it with silence, before you know it, you're not driving performance, you're managing a decline. So speak up. Speak up with clarity, not criticism. Speak up with fairness, not favoritism. Everything's applied equally. And most importantly, speak up. Be consistent. Consistency, not chaos. It's not the standard of the day. It's how we do things around here. It's my pleasure. That's how you protect your team, your culture. Very importantly, your credibility. So let me close this up. Set standards or expect decline. And this is one of those core chapters from my book, The Road Back to Difficult Conversations. It's 100% free. Download it. Link in the show notes. And remember, if you got value today, please share, like, subscribe to the Business Mechanic Show. That helps the show reach more listeners and managers trying to be better leaders. Share with somebody who needs this message. And if you're ready to take the next step, visit me at rdltraining.com. You'll find the tools, the training, the coaching to transform managers into leaders who drive results. So until next time, keep setting those standards, keep leading with integrity, and keep driving results. Now get after it.